Welcome back to the Self-Esteem and Confidence Mindset Podcast with me, Johnny Pardo. Today, I welcome back Lauren to the show, where we're going to be talking about self-confidence, mindset, and sleep. So just a quick introduction to Lauren. So Lauren is a sleep educator and coach. Her approach is rooted in circadian health, behavioral sleep science. She specializes in helping people who identify as sensitive people or sensitive sleepers. So, Lauren, welcome back to the show. Just saying, we
Thank
were just talking
you.
about before this that obviously we did an episode a while ago, and I think you were my very first guest to the show, and yeah, really enjoyed our conversation around sleep then. So, yeah, for the listener who, if they're new to your work, tell us a little bit about really what got you so fascinated with the topic of sleep and helping people with that.
Yeah, sure. It started because in my 20s I had about 5 years of on and off insomnia. I'd say 5 years of regular sleeping troubles. And it was torturous on its own.
Mhm.
But through that time, I would go through periods where I'd, dive into research and trying to learn and try a bunch of new things. And then it seemed like nothing was working. So I'd go through another period where I just kind of forget about it and leave it for a bit. And these waves of learning and trying and going to different doctors and, trying different medications, whether prescription or something off the shelf, ended up taking me about 5 years to like get through it and to figure out how I could create better sleep for myself and what I needed to do to overcome this in my own life. And at the end of that, I was in college for nutrition. And then after graduating, I started working at this naturopathic clinic where I was working with naturopathic doctors and clinical pharmacists. And then I was on the nutrition team. So a lot of learnings. We had a really amazing team there. And I noticed that a lot of people had sleeping challenges or questions about sleep, and there wasn't anyone there who specialized in it. And I didn't really know anyone else in the holistic health space at the time, and in the city where I was who was focusing on sleep either. And some conversations that were in our supplement store, they were just, casual conversations with some of our clients. Those were getting to be longer, more in-depth conversations. And then the owner said, "Hey, Lauren, you seem to be really interested in this sleep stuff. Do you want to do holistic lifestyle consultations for sleep? And then if people are interested in that, then we can, get into it more and you can do more education in the area." And I was like, okay, they're very entrepreneurial there. They're very like ahead, they like to stay ahead of the curve. And this was 2018, I think. So this was before, Matt Walker had his Why We Sleep book,
Mm,
before he had his podcast, before Andrew Huberman did his sleep series of
mm,
podcasts. Like it wasn't such a hot topic or like a cool health trend to focus on sleep. And it was really COVID coming and adding to everyone's stress and making everyone's life a lot less mobile that really put pressure on the
mm,
quality of everyone's sleep. So it became way more of a hot topic then. But I was lucky to just get into it a little bit before that. And then of course when COVID started, I moved that work online, and that was a game changer again, like changed the way that I was doing things. So yeah, that's how sleep coaching was born for me. I ended up doing a sleep specific coaching program. And then I also did another program in cognitive behavioral therapy for sleep, for insomnia, which I don't offer that because I'm not a therapist, but I did the course just because I wanted to have that science background so that when something wasn't working for someone, I could maybe see if it was because something else is happening in their health. And I'd recommend that they would go to their doctor and get that checked out. So that's kind of the story in a nutshell.
oh, it's amazing. It's yeah, it's interesting. I was even like I think kind of achievers and people like we sometimes can. I know lots of people I've spoken to, and in my own experience, in my own life, it's quite easy to sometimes think, oh, I'll sacrifice a bit of sleep so I can get this done, and then it can become a little bit of a bad habit. And I've noticed in like mood changes, and not always at first, but then the brain fog maybe for me just increases a little bit. And it's like, hang on, what am I even saying? And I think, oh, I'm okay. And it's like, so yeah, it's definitely very interesting to notice the importance of it. Um, so yeah,
Yeah.
like in terms of the sensitive sleepers that you mentioned, what's a sensitive sleeper?
Sensitive sleeper for me is someone who they'll often describe themselves as bad sleepers or say that they're
Mm,
sensitive sleepers, like they're very sensitive maybe to noise and light, to
mm,
different schedules. Like if they have to stay up later than usual one night, then they feel like their sleep's ruined for the whole
mm,
night. They're typically people who have stress around the subject of sleep, and all of the things that impact it. And it's more typically women who are sensitive sleepers. I think our hormones were just made that way. We're also made to pay attention to noises in case we end up having children, and then we're very, very sensitive to the
mm,
noises that the children make at night. But some men as well. Especially with a company called Crescent that I worked with for a few years. In that space, I mostly worked with men, and some of them definitely identified as sensitive sleepers. So it would be someone who has a higher propensity to having insomnia, which is just
mm,
trouble falling asleep or staying asleep without there being another medical condition that's interfering. Like you could have trouble staying asleep because you have sleep apnea, which is a breathing problem that occurs at night. But in the case of someone who's just purely a sensitive sleeper, when I first meet with them, I ask them a lot of health related
mm,
questions just so I can make sure there's nothing else going on. And then if they seem like the right fit, then we'll work together on building their sleep confidence. It's actually
mm.
something that I focus on, so we can talk about
Oh,
that.
yeah, let's talk about that. I'd love to know what
Yeah.
sleep confidence is.
Yeah, so most of the people who I work with have lost confidence in their ability to have a good sleep. And
Oh,
this brings them a lot of stress, especially as bedtime approaches or whenever anybody asks them about their sleep. Then it becomes a regular source of stress. So the stress might be throughout the day, and then as they see what time it is and bedtime's approaching, right? So the approach I take to helping that person build confidence is first to providing them with a safe space to talk about sleep like they've never had the opportunity to do before, so they can kind of let their guard down and feel understood.
mm,
And then from there, I focus on education because a lot of things about sleep are not actually that intuitive, which is why we accidentally give ourselves insomnia, because when our sleep gets off or maybe we change time zones, then we do these things to help us sleep better, but sometimes we're actually doing something that's counterproductive, and then it makes the sleep be dysregulated for a lot longer. So we focus on some basic sleep science and what sleep actually needs from us in order for it to function properly. And then from there, I'll identify the one or two most impactful things, the thing that will get that person the most benefit, and I'll have them do it and meet them 1 week later. So this is
mm,
typically after our first call. I'll give them like the one or two biggest asks and then meet them 1 week later so that I've given them something that already can help them build confidence. So do these one or two things, and in a week, we're already going to see that things are shifting.
mm.
And then from there, we'll get into the more nitty gritty, and tweak things as needed. But the first things I give to any of my coaching clients are always, I aim for them to be the most impactful things so that they're like, oh, this is working. Their confidence and their ability to improve their sleep is already going up.
Oh, wow. So kind of making it like specific to them and helping them like understand for them, what might be blocking them, and then just focusing on one thing at a time. And I guess could those one of those things could be stress. Um, Maybe it's things in their environment, right? Could that be potentially something that's impacting them? Like like electronics and things like that that they don't realize is on, those kind of things. Yeah.
Yeah, typically the first things I'll focus on with somebody is their timing,
Okay.
their sleep timing, the way that they're interacting with their bed. And depending on the person, it'll be like their other worst habit.
Mm,
Like if they're having way too many stimulants, that would probably be a most impactful thing for that person. Or if they're eating really late, then moving that earlier could be a really impactful thing for that person. So typically the first session, it's me asking a lot of questions so that I can get context on what would be most helpful.
mm,
And so if I pick two things for somebody, it's normally something around timing and then something around their other lifestyle behaviors, depending on the
mm.
person.
Okay. No, yeah, very, very specific again. It's like I know sometimes in the personal growth world in general, I've been guilty of it of kind of like generalizing you should be doing like this, and this and this order at this time. So your approach is to really to understand the person and what's, not working or maybe potentially getting in their way. I like it. Cool. In that respect.
Yeah,
Awesome.
yeah. Well, the course platform that I built has everything, and I go through it all in a general order of these are probably the things that are going to make the most difference, and
Mm.
then there's kind of, categories of
Okay.
learning. But when I'm working with someone one-on-one, I can get a lot of information from them in the first hour that we work together, and from there I can see more easily what's going to be most impactful for this person. So then I'm kind of doing the work for them instead of them learning everything and then deciding which things they should do. I can just get a sense of the person and say, all right, these two things, let's go. So I can simplify it for them. I think that that's
Yeah.
the benefit of hiring a human to work with you.
Yeah. No, I love it, Lauren. No, that's awesome. Do you find just like curious, obviously on the topic of sort of like self-esteem and confidence as the podcast, do you find those who have perhaps had well, probably most people you're working with have the sleep's impacted on them quite a bit that they're obviously coming to you. Do you find it's impacted on their relationships with themselves as well and how they feel about them? Do you find there's a link there at all? Just maybe not.
Often yes. Your relationship to your sleep is really tied to your relationship to yourself and to your self-care. And when we're young, when we're
Mm,
kids, when we're teenagers, even into early 20s, we have these really strong hormonal rhythms. So we can mess up a lot in terms of our circadian health.
mm,
Circadian meaning the timing of when your body likes things to happen for you to be at optimal health. Um, so
okay.
there's a lot of forgiveness there because we have these really, really strong circadian rhythms, strong hormonal rhythms. And then as we get into middle life, for many of us, then things start changing and it on the surface it's like, oh yeah, you can't act like a teenager your whole life. We grow up, we get a little more sensible with our bedtime and our partying habits and our eating habits and all those things. But there really is a deep, deep science to this. And if we're not doing things in line with our circadian rhythm, then sleep can be the thing that goes. And that's really challenging to function well during the day if your sleep isn't good. Like we can function pretty well. Most people can function pretty well if you don't have perfect nutrition or you don't have a perfect workout routine. But if your sleep is really suffering, then people really, really feel that during the day, that it's harder to get through the day.
Mm.
And it'll make it harder to do your exercise and eat well as well if you're not getting the sleep that you need. So I went on a bit of a mental tangent. I
No,
don't
no.
know if I'm asking your question, answering it anymore. But it definitely relates to their relationship to self and how they manage their self-care, and that changes a lot as my clients understand more about sleep and more about their sleep needs and
Mm,
what gives them the best sleep, because we'll each have things that are more impactful than other things. I worked with this woman who introduced me the concept of green light, orange light, and red light lifestyles. So the red light sleep lifestyle would be a lifestyle that's creating really awful, horrendous sleep for someone.
Mm,
And then they can get into the orange zone where they're doing things that are a little bit better and their sleep is now okay. And then there's probably a different set of habits that creates really ideal optimal sleep for that person. And so my goal would be to introduce the person to the version of their lifestyle that gives them that perfect version of sleep, but without putting any pressure or guilt to create that all the time. It's like now you have the knowledge that you need, and with giving it a try with me, you've experienced it. So now you believe that these things do work for you. And then moving through life, you don't have to do things perfectly every day. Nobody does. And, you go to a wedding, maybe you're going to have more alcohol than usual. You're going to go to bed later, but you're going to do that because it's a soulful day and it's okay for sleep's not perfect that
mm,
day, right? But on another day where you have a really important meeting in the morning, then you can do the things in the few days leading up to it that is going to give you the sleep that you need to perform your best on that day. So just knowledge is power, and I try to approach everything with a compassionate curiosity so that I'm not that like mean, do this or else kind of coach.
just kind of giving them that awareness and guiding them back to what's ultimately going to be best for them. I guess is kind of what I understood from um, that kind of area when you focus on it. So with talking about like sleep and how what we need and understanding ourselves, do you find it's just like it's like quite a simple one, but and you probably get asked this a lot. Are there some people who can function on less sleep than others, or is there like a minimum? Because I know there's like some people are like, I only need 5 hours, and then there's some who are like, no, I need 9 hours. I can get anywhere near as low as 5 hours, but I'm like 8 hour sort of person ideally. But yeah, do you find people have different times that they need for their ideal sleep from people you work with?
Yeah, I'd say I probably work with people in the from like the whole rainbow, where people come to me because they genuinely can't sleep more than 5 hours a night.
Mm,
And sleep science says that there is basically no human that can avoid some stress on their health from sleeping less than 6 hours per night. So that would be, if we're looking at sleep science, 6 would be the least that someone could go sleeping regularly. But that doesn't mean that anybody can sleep 6 hours per night and then perform well. Like if I was forced to sleep 6 hours per night, I would be a wreck
mm,
because
me
I'm
too.
an 8 to 8.5 hours of sleep every night, right? Yeah, I have worked with a few people who genuinely can't really sleep even up to 6 hours, and I don't know if it'll have an impact on their health or not because they're doing everything right in terms of lifestyle, not having like most of those people who I've worked with, they've already tried so many things, so then they want to come and work with a sleep coach to see if there's something that they're missing, right?
Mm,
But I have met a few people who genuinely can't sleep up to 6 hours. So, and then I've had other people who sleep really, really long periods of time. But those really long sleepers are often sleeping really long because they have sleep apnea or they have other health challenges that increases their need for sleep, or they don't actually need 10 hours of sleep every night. It's that they're cutting their sleep short on some nights, and then they're getting 1 or 2 nights of big sleep, and then they're going again a number of nights with short sleep, and then a few nights of big sleep. And then
mm,
sometimes in that pattern, the person can develop the belief of, oh, I need 10 hours of sleep or 9 hours of sleep because when I do get that amount of sleep, I actually
mm.
feel good. But that's because they're catching up to some degree. We can't catch up fully on all the sleep that we miss, but we do catch up to some degree. So, yeah, there's there's a whole variety of that. But one thing that I do with my clients is I work with them to find their ideal amount of sleep, and there's a science to that. There's a process that we follow. It takes a number of weeks, and essentially I'll have them fill out a sleep diary for a few weeks, and then we'll change the duration that they're spending in bed to match the average amount of time that they actually sleep,
Mm,
so that we're taking out those really short nights and those really long nights and averaging everything out. And then from there, we'll tweak it, because typically the first time period that we choose, it's not always their ideal time period. And sometimes even if it's the ideal duration, we might need to shift it earlier or later. So it's a little bit of scientific trial and error, where we're based on their last 2 weeks of data, we choose a period of time that they sleep. And then, and it's kind of a practice, because you're training your sleep to occur during that time. And essentially we see what happens. Is it happening naturally during this time? Is it not happening naturally during this time? And then
mm,
with that feedback, then we, take it from there and give them the next steps. And at the end of it, we have their ideal sleep window, ideal sleep duration and sleep timing, and then the habits on each end to support the quality of it. And yeah, it's a
mm.
pretty cool process. It's really
Oh,
nice to see
cool.
it unfold.
Ah, amazing. And I bet it gives a bit of variety as well, kind of seeing all these different, yeah, these different patterns for people as well. Oh, that's great. So
Yeah.
kind of like links that, I'm just like curious, did you in when people sort of like going to bed, I know for me it's just like I'll pretty much go to sleep as soon as I get to bed. I'm very fortunate like that because I kind of exercising and do a lot in the day. But do you find like people need different like wind down routines as well?
Yeah, some people have more trouble shutting off their minds,
Mm,
or that's the way that they phrase it. And
mm,
for some people, it can be that they're actually not using their physical body enough, and they have too much pent up energy. And at the end of the day,
mm,
it's coming out as mental energy, because I really believe that the mind and body share the same source of energy. And when we're not using our physical body enough, then it can turn into anxiety and running thoughts and that kind of thing. It's very well researched that exercise is one of the best treatments, if we can call it like a lifestyle treatment for anxiety and depression, because the endorphins, because it helps you get out that stuck energy. I really, really believe it. I feel like I use the analogy of sort of like a battery. If your body's this battery and it's got really intense energy stored in the core, and if you just spend your whole day doing kind of easy movements, you can't move that deeper energy that's like stuck in the middle. But when you do something more physically
oh, I like that.
challenging, then you move this core energy. And for me, it just creates such a shift. And I think that's in exercise where you actually get that endorphin rush, is when you exert yourself to a certain degree where you've
Mm.
moved deeper energy that you otherwise can't get to. And I feel that that has such an impact on sleep quality. Well, it does when we get those more strenuous exercises in, like doing weights, even if it's a short period of weights, like a short duration, it helps us to create more deep sleep, actually. So
Oh,
there's
interesting. Yeah, I like doing weights, but I probably don't do them as much as I would like. I like what you said, the analogy of trying to like get into that energy by just doing that like more intent, maybe not all the time, but maybe that more intense and exercise now and then to really get there and help release that. So yeah, that's
yeah.
a good
'Cause
one.
you do marathons sometimes, right? Or half marathons?
Yeah, well, I got half marathon coming up. Yeah, that's a
Nice.
good one. It's an exercise can kind of be like an ongoing sort of benefit through the day and after it as well. I find personally, I don't know about you.
Yeah,
Mm,
yeah. So the endorphins
mm,
from a full workout will last you multiple days. So if someone goes from zero exercise routine to twice a week, it will improve their whole week pretty much. So
Mm,
it's pretty incredible. Yeah,
love it.
the impact that it has on sleep is huge.
Yeah, it's one of those. I don't even know if I want to call it a small thing, but it's one of those things your mind might perceive as small, and then it's actually making a massive difference. Yeah, it's yeah, it's like just today I've gone for a walk, and you notice it from doing like a weight session another day. There's a difference in the two. Not that I need to do heavy weights every single day because I don't think the body might get a bit overstressed. But yeah, I do like the benefits what you're talking about there, Lauren. So yeah, Lauren, just before we sort of like wrap up today, what would
Yeah.
be I like to ask the guest what their number one confidence tip would be. So if you could share yours, whether it's something we've talked about today or something else maybe, and then also where can the listener find out more from you if they want to go a bit more into depth with their sleep? Yeah, where can they reach you?
Yeah, so for a confidence tip, I would say to be prepared and get resources and help where is needed, whether you're preparing for, a presentation or you're trying to improve your sleep.
Mm,
Having a mentor to
mm,
guide you, and having the education so that you understand the intricacies of whatever it is that you're doing. I believe that that helps increase confidence hugely. And if you're getting good sleep, then you'll have better confidence than when you're not getting good sleep,
mm,
no matter what you're doing. And then if you want to learn more about me, or just take a peek at what it is that I do, you can find me on Instagram. It's just under my name, Lauren.Duffell, or LinkedIn, the same thing, Lauren Duffell, and I'm assuming you'll have that spelling in the show notes.
yeah.
And then my website is Coaching for Insomniacs. And on there, I have a description of the program that I offer and some testimonials so you can see the kinds of things that people experience.
Brilliant. Love it. Well, yeah, we'll be sure to link all that up in the show notes. And yeah, definitely recommend reaching out to Lauren. She's a powerhouse of knowledge for all things sleep. So yeah, we'll be sure to link that up. So once again, Lauren, a massive thank you for coming on today.
Thank you, Johnny. Great to have me, or great to be here again. And I was not aware that I was your first guest
Yeah, I know.
last time. And if you listen to that episode, I should listen to it again because I was saying to you that I was in such
Yeah.
a different place in my life then. I was living in the jungle in Costa Rica, and now I'm back in North America. So I'd probably get a good laugh of listening to it also.
Yeah. I think the internet connection was more of a challenge then as well when we were
Definitely.
in the beautiful isolated sometimes jungle of Costa Rica. It's may not always be the best, but yeah, beautiful place, I'm sure. So cool. Yeah,
Definitely.
go back and check it. So anyway, that concludes our episode for today. And remember, you are in control of your own self-esteem and confidence.